And as we established our OKRs and established the goals that we were setting for our KPIs, we said, okay, how do we do this? By cutting one day.
Mhm.
And the two effects that we set as a hypothesis, one is, well, people are going to be incentivized to be more productive.
After seeing deficiencies in the crowdsourcing content space, today's Ask an Expert focused on improving the customer experience while also elevating the level of content those customers got. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlson, co-founder of Propelo Media, and today I sit down with Santiago Jaramillo. He is the CEO of Bunny Studios. They've worked with mom and pops, mid-sized businesses, all the way up to the Home Depots and Airbnbs of the world. Today he's going to share a number of insights, some of which include how video is important, whether or not you're using it today, and why it will be so much more important tomorrow. He's also going to talk about creating good content and how you measure that content. And finally, he's going to share insights of a current running experiment. It's just 4 days a work week instead of 5. Their team has worked incredible hours as we've gone through this roller coaster. And so what they've done is try to improve operational efficiencies with all their tasks so they can give their employees an extra day off a week. So far, it's looking good, but let's see what else Santiago has to say. Santiago, thank you so much for coming on our Ask an Expert podcast.
Thanks for having me here, Joshua.
So I want to start first with the group that you're running right now, which is Bunny Studio. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
So Bunny Studio is a fulfillment platform for creative services. We fulfill services such as voiceovers, audio ads, video ads, illustrations, everything that goes around creative services. You give us a brief description of what you need, and we fulfill it within a couple of hours.
Okay, so let's talk about this brief description because you guys are working with clients from all over the world. What is the process to talk to a client about what their needs are and then align that with the creative assets that you guys have available to you?
So you're part of an agency, so put yourself thinking as an agency. And most of the times when your clients arrive, they're normally needing to scale some part of their creative services. They need video editors, they need voiceovers for video. They need to create audio ads because online radio is growing, so they need the audio ad side they can stream somewhere. What we provide is a very simple or nimble experience for someone like an agency or someone like your end client to come to our website and tell us, hey, I need a voiceover in English or Spanish or German or French, and I need it with either it's a male voice or a female voice, and I need it within the next 6-12 hours, and potentially I needed to put a music soundtrack behind the scenes. And you come to my website, you answer 3-4 questions, completely straightforward, and within the next 12 hours, you get a completely deliverable human recorded, in this case, voiceover. In the case of an audio ad, completely recorded audio ad, ready to stream anywhere. And then the interesting thing that you have with a website is that we guarantee the experience. So you're not necessarily going to an open marketplace of freelancing when you have to interact with a lot of people and have to set a lot of expectations. Pricing, quality, and time is predictable in our website. So what you end up getting, it's something very lean and ready to use. The last thing that comes is that you can come for me for 1-2 potential projects that you might need, or you can produce 100 or 500 projects on a weekly basis, and you'll have the same pricing, the same quality, and the same deliverable speed.
Okay. And so I guess I want to get back to those questions because I think that one of the challenges, and you guys have clearly solved this from the crowdsourcing aspect, when you go into these platforms, whether it's freelancer.com or something, it does feel like, hey, I've got a bowl of spaghetti. I know the flavor that I'm looking for, but I have no idea. Like, it's just a slog to get through it. What was the process to develop those straightforward questions that really help you guys hone in on exactly what the client's looking like to make sure when you turn around, you grab the right asset to pair that up to?
Look, we found specifically 2 types of ways that people are looking to buy a creative deliverable. And on the one hand, you have the individual who has some sort of 20 minutes to spare. And with those 20 minutes, what the person is looking for is for samples of projects that he might like. So look at the first difference between other marketplaces from what Bunny Studio does. What we give the individual, if you go to my website, is you're going to be listening, in the case of voiceovers, you're going to be listening to samples of voiceovers. In the case of design services, you're going to be looking at design samples. In
Sure.
the case of audio ads, a fully completed automated audio ad, you're going to find music with a voiceover completely ready. And then you're going to be able to spend 10, 20 minutes listening or searching or looking at things that you might like.
Okay.
That's a very different approach to when you go to other marketplaces where you're looking at the freelancer themselves, which
Yeah.
have no portfolio. Or you have to go to the freelancer and the portfolio. You start here with a sample. So the sample search is extremely powerful for the individual that has 20 minutes to spare.
Yep.
The other type of customer that you find is, hey, I don't even have the 20 minutes to listen to anything. I just know that I have these specific needs.
Yeah.
Can you get it back to me? And I literally have 4 minutes, 5 minutes to answer you 5 questions or
Yeah.
3 questions. And I'll trust you guys to do it. Now, the reason why you would be able, or a customer actually trusts us to scale their creative services is because the entire pool of deliverables, the entire pool of freelancers is vetted.
Okay.
So it's not an open marketplace where anyone can participate. It's a vetted marketplace where the designers, the voiceovers, the video editors have
Yeah.
been filtered.
Yeah.
So when they participate, the quality that you receive is already guaranteed, and that is speed up revisions, that is speed back and forth, that is speed a lot of the process.
Perfect. So yeah, I get that, because that is we're looking for, I don't want to look through a bunch of candidates that may or may not be experienced. So you
Mhm.
guys vetting those in advance mean that, it's automatically going to ensure the quality is going to be much better. I want to just talk content in general, because that's really the business that you're in. And it's really, it's one of the biggest burdens, which is why you guys have a business. But
Yep.
I want to talk about content. How would you define what is good content?
So the way what we actually understand what is good quality or not depends on the specific uh, industry that we are providing content. So if it's a voiceover specifically, we not only take into consideration the intonation or the subjective side of what makes a good voiceover, but we go back into the technicality of a voiceover. We make sure there's no white noise. We make sure there's no static. We make sure it's clean to some technical aspects. So by the time that the freelancer applies to the system,
Yep.
we have a checkpoint of the elements that we have to take into consideration, both on the subjective side and
Yeah.
both on the technical side. We do the same with content. For example, for written content, there are two types of writers that you're going to find: incredible storytellers, and
Yeah.
you're going to find storytellers that actually know SEO, for example.
Yeah.
So if you want to be part of my storytelling pool, you have to go over some certain tests and specific requirements that we gave you on the application. If you want to be part of my crowd of SEO content writers, you
Right.
have to pass a specific test regarding SEO. Once you build those collections of tests, then you're part of the crowd. Once you're part of the crowd, that speeds a lot of the interaction with the clients because you know they're vetted for specific areas.
Okay. Well, so the next question is a business owner who's developing content. Let's just say I make hats, right? So I'm making content around hats, visors, sun protection, style, whatever it may be. There's a lot of facets. How do we measure? How do we measure the value of content? And obviously, there's going to be a wide spectrum. So feel free to just carte blanche, like take it out as you want to.
I think it's very hard to understand what is the value of content if you haven't done the research, if you don't have a team of people that have already guided you through that curve of understanding why content is important. So I have two type of clients, if I can put them into different buckets.
Sure.
One is a type of client that is just starting to explore why content is important. And they come to the website and they start building certain type of projects, trying to explore if it's going to fit or not. The second type of bucket of clients that you're going to find is people that already know that content is important. Either they're creating video, either they're creating written content, either they're creating voiceovers for specific projects. And what we end up doing is it's easier to scale or actually support this second part of clients when they already know that content is important.
Right.
Why is content important? Well, the world is moving to content. Like I was reading, there's something very interesting about about the internet waves.
Okay.
And there's a paper from that I read in The Economist a couple of months ago, and they talk about the first wave of internet, and kind of bucket it into 1998, 1999, until
Yeah.
actually 2019, and they call the first 20 years of the internet.
Oh,
And they went over the thesis that people had about how the internet would help the world. And one of the interesting thesis that was proven wrong was that people would go to the internet to find better jobs, to have access to better education,
yeah.
and within the first 20 years of the first wave, um, people would actually, have better income regardless of where they are, have better education regardless of where they are. While that happened, that was not how people use the internet.
Okay.
People use the internet for entertainment and content.
Yeah. Right.
And then the second wave where we're heading in the next 10, 20 years, when they rephrase kind of what are the hypotheses for the second wave of internet, can we argue that work, jobs, and education is going to be a big part of it? Well, the answer was perhaps not. It's going to be important, but it will continue to be entertainment, the
Yeah.
main way of how people use the internet. And that was very interesting because that's mainly media, that's mainly content.
Correct.
And part of the data that they shared was look at the developing big markets. And by that, I mean Southeast Asia, India, China. Look at those big developing markets. And I'm not sure how you use the internet, but the way I use it is whenever I open Chrome, I go to Google and I search whatever it is and I read the Google results and I go into the first, second, or third link.
Yeah.
The way how these developing markets and the people that are for the first time using the internet, it's not that way.
Mm.
They go into YouTube
Right. Yes.
and they search video.
Yes.
And the same question that I'm asking on text, they're asking them on video.
Yeah.
And they're looking for it and they're expecting the same answers on video. Now, all of that video at the end of the day is content. Is
Yep.
one of the many ways of how you can build content. And if you're a business and if you're trying to position yourself in this crowded world of what we call the World Wide Web, then many years ago you could think only text was going to be worth building for. Now you have
Yeah.
to think about video, and then you have to think about voice, and then you have to think about many other elements that at the end of the day is content.
So let's talk about video because we're on video right now. This
Yep.
is the meeting that we're at, and it's been one of my favorite topics these past few months because I think what I have experienced and what I've talked to a lot of people is video has just exploded, but most of that has actually been internal organizations. So it's intercompany, right? Because we're no longer shoulder to shoulder. We're actually, 5 miles apart, 20 miles apart, or in our instance, several thousand miles apart,
Yep.
but we're able to communicate as if we were in person. What are you seeing looking customer facing? Because when we think about videos, there's multiple formats. We have explainer videos. We have mass, or high-end, hi-fi commercials. We have some social medias kind of bridge this a little bit, but what are the trends that you're seeing with video as it pertains to the consumer market?
I'll try to put it into three things that come
Okay.
to mind immediately. The first one is there are a lot of companies that have built their businesses based on paper.
Yeah.
And because I produce voice and I produce video, one of the largest industries that is growing within my own company, it's e-learning. But it's not e-learning in the way that you might think about Coursera or Skillshare or whatever website that is Linda, which is now owned by
Yeah.
LinkedIn for the last couple of years. Not only that type of e-learning, it's e-learning from businesses saying, hey, I have this humongous amount of written content
Yeah.
that I now need to transform to video. So companies are looking into how to build their own repositories of information into video, and that's an interesting business opportunity. How can you help to transform written content into video? That's something that's happening. We're seeing it within our organization. The second thing that you're seeing is what I potentially was mentioning a couple of minutes ago, which is people are using, specifically in the largest growing markets, Brazil, Indonesia, India, they're going to the web for the first time through video. And then the opportunity for a lot of companies, how do they position themselves through those channels, which is very different from wooden content. It's very different from owning a website, because you're not going to appear in a result of YouTube as a website. It
Yeah, right.
changes the paradigm of how you position your business online. Um, and then the third thing that you might actually have around that comes to mind is AI.
Mm.
At the end of the day, everything, even what I'm doing, will be disrupted in the next 5 to 15 years by AI, and video is no difference. That will have a benefit for the producer, might have an impact on the offer, on the freelancer themselves, but creating video will be every time easier. I've been seeing a couple of my clients creating incredible tools. I forgot the name of this company right now. You might have seen them like a company like this or like others, but they're doing human, like they take pictures of the individual. They go for you,
Yeah.
they ask you, hey, go into your webcam. I'm going to take you like pictures from different angles,
Yep.
and then they're going to create an artificial intelligence version of yourself. They put the voice, and then the guys that I've been talking to recently, they told me, try to recognize who's the original version of, in this case, Joshua.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm gonna try to, this is Joshua. No, that's the AI version. He's like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And then everything is gonna be, uh, at some point, is gonna have an intersection with AI, and that's gonna change, in the case of video, a lot of the production speed. It's gonna change a lot of the capabilities for video producers to do.
So that's a very interesting topic, because I think um, it's a can of worms. I'm just going to open it. So we'll go down and we'll see where this goes. But that's fascinating. And from a technology and from a consumption, from a business, like it's incredibly powerful. And, instantly the mind sees all these different applications. But the flip side of this is suddenly I'm seeing a version of me that is saying something that I would never say. It makes me think, what is the technology that comes behind it? So when we go back into old school, photography, photos, you used to be able to say, hey, you could see there was metadata that said this was edited. And so there was a fingerprint that said this was edited. It makes me think, what are the fingerprints? What are the safeguards that say, hey, this is a manufactured, as opposed to, suddenly Josh is out there saying that, he loves whatever the color blue, and actually no, I'm a green guy, right? So what are you hearing in that front?
It's interesting. We've had a couple of conversations in the company. Every time you see this focused AI powered technologies doing crazy things that to some extent impersonate a
Yeah.
person, what are the ethics and the moral side that you should
Right.
take there?
Right.
And to be completely honest, I don't have necessarily a standing, specifically because when you think about it in the U.S. market and the U.S. legislation, it's super flexible to allow you to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Is like I have a friend working at a very large foundation. I'll skip the name for a minute, but he's part of the legal department, and they build content for the web that talks about a lot of people.
Okay.
And most of the times the conversation is telling me is like, well, here specifically in the U.S., uh, it's like you can actually do it, and you can actually be molded, because it's like you don't necessarily own the asset of how it's built. It's the outcome, and
Yeah.
it's extremely flexible. So that has a lot of capabilities for the AI. I was thinking about Adobe.
Mm.
Adobe launched somewhere about 18 months ago. Um, uh, they haven't launched it. They shared an experiment where you could record your voice for about 5-6 minutes,
Yeah.
and you read the script. The system take it into the cloud,
Yep.
and then you could write a new copy of whatever the system you wanted to say, and it would sound like you,
Right.
like 95% accurate of how you would actually sound. And the ethical and moral standing of where AI is heading, I think it's on everyone's head of what it's going to be
Sure.
uh, approved, what do we accept and what we don't.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard question. I wouldn't have necessarily the smartest or the strongest position on the topic.
Well, I think that makes two of us. I don't know that I would either. But what I think is here, the PSA or public service announcement here is that I think we as consumers, we have an obligation to be more mindful. And uh, there's a lot of organizations right now, and I know you guys are one of them, that I'd like to applaud. Like, you've recognized there are social issues right now. and it's important to be in front of those. But I had a guest on and I said, do you think organizations are chasing consumers, or do you think they're leading consumers? And it's an open question, and there's no right or wrong answer. I think it depends each organization. But my takeaway is it is up to the consumer to demand what they think is important. And as we get deeper and deeper with AI, I think transparency and awareness it's very important for the consumer to be aware of that.
I completely agree. I completely agree. You remind me of a case where I had a critique from a client saying, "Hey, you guys are using AI for producing your voiceovers, and I'm not using AI today, specifically in the human side of the human voice recorded." And we were arguing with the client or having conversations, saying, "No, we didn't use AI." And he was actually very mad. He's a friend of mine, and he was very mad, telling me, "Santi, you're using AI. I pass it through my editors, and they say that this voice was created with AI." And I talked to my team, and I talked to the voiceover, and like, I've never used AI. And it also goes into the mindset of when actually am I really saying you, hey, trust me, I'm not using AI, and the individuals thinking that I'm actually to some extent getting more money because I was using AI to build whatever
Right,
he was
right.
expecting. And it changes the paradigm for consumers on when do they actually think that whatever you're delivering was not built by a person, was built by AI, and then the price that comes around that. If you're gonna give me an AI solution, I'm not gonna pay the price that you're charging. I'm gonna pay a tenth or a
Yeah,
quarter of that. If you're
right,
using uh, people to build it, then I'm gonna pay the full price. So it's an
right.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like we could go on forever. So we won't.
Yep.
We'll just table this for now. I think it's another conversation. But I want to shift to you're talking about clients. Who's an ideal client for you guys? When you look out of the marketplace, what do you do from a targeting standpoint to say, hey, these are the type of businesses that we should be focused
I have I try to focus on four type of businesses. One is
on?
actually your type of company.
Okay.
It's an agency that is producing different marketing solutions for their customers, and they're looking to scale their capacity to deliver. Specifically throughout the last 4 months, it's been the largest type of business that has come to us.
Okay.
Most of these businesses normally have in-house production of video, in-house voiceover production, in-house animation, in-house content writers.
Mm-hmm.
And for the economic reasons that we're all living in, it switches to the point of having not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
um, in-house producers, but on-demand services. So
Right.
whenever you need it to scale, then you can scale. Whenever you need it to make it shorter, then you just make the capacity a little bit smaller.
Sure.
That's one type of big clients that we work with. The second type is people that are doing e-learning. So not only for companies that we were referring to in a minute, but also for e-learning companies that are producing content.
Yeah.
And you're going to find an incredible boom. Like if there's an
Yep.
industry that is growing today, is e-learning in multiple aspects. E-learning for how to produce video games, e-learning to know how to actually go to remote, e-learning for becoming a freelancer, e-learning for becoming a better business manager.
Right.
And there's no quote unquote big winner in this industry. And there are a lot of people creating content in different markets. So there's big, like 10 companies in Brazil doing this, hundreds of companies in the US. You go to Ireland, you go to Germany, they're doing a lot. And those customers find a lot of benefits into what we can offer to help them scale. Um, the third type of customer, it's advertising, so not necessarily agency, but advertising companies directly.
Yeah.
So if you're producing, once again, audio ads or video ads, which we didn't talk about video ads throughout the video side in a minute, but audio ad production and video ad production, it's growing incredible, specifically for online radio stations, you name it, or video, short video production that streams ads, you name it. For those type of channels, we produce a lot of content, and we're producing several things there. And last but not least is the video game producers. Video game production is growing incredible around the
Yeah.
world in the last couple of years. And in 2020, from the numbers that I've read, that I will not adventure to share because I don't know them by heart, but the numbers that I've been reading for the last 4 months, it's a breaking point in terms of how much video game production is spending. It's
Yeah.
incredible the amount.
Right.
And then you have incredible large video game producers, but you also find a lot of small 3, 4, 5 teams building video games that are going to be a success in the next couple of years,
Right.
and they can scale with some of our services.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, having kids, gaming is, I've seen it evolve from, when I was a kid and it was Atari was revolutionary and then Nintendo. And I just was on a team huddle earlier and we were talking about gaming, especially as everybody is shelter in place. And I'm like, I stopped gaming I couldn't keep up. It's because it's just so rapidly evolving,
Yeah.
and it just is just consuming. What do you guys do so how do you go out once you've identified, hey, you've got 4 segments? How do you guys market? Like, what are the strategies you use to go out and then actually connect with those people?
Actually, it's an interesting thing. We've grown. Our 2 main growth channels have always been search engine optimization, SEO,
Yep.
and word of mouth.
Okay.
So my paid channels are not my strong channel.
Right.
Everything that we've built in terms of SEO is a long-term investment that was started many years ago. So for the services that we sell, we try to position our brand around that, and we're actually quite good on word of mouth. Like the experience that our clients, I'm sure that every CEO that comes to this episode can tell you, oh, my company is fantastic, but I can tell you that my service is fantastic. Like the experience that my clients get, it's so good. That is a purple cow from
Yeah.
Seth Rogen.
Yes, Seth
It's like,
Godin. Yeah.
so people do actually say like, wow, this was cool. I just sent something and in 3 hours I got it. And
Right.
we have one specific email that we send. I've never seen many companies using this. Every time I have a new customer that submits a project, in the first 24 hours, I send them an email. That's, of course, it's an automated email. I look at the answer, but the email actually says, hey, this is me.
Yep.
This is a company that we've built over a couple of years. We don't have advertising or growth channels completely established. The way that we actually grown is through word of mouth. Would you mind, if the experience was good,
Yeah.
would you mind sharing the voice?
Sure.
That email has an incredible response rate from our customers, from
Yeah.
every new customer. And they're like, hey, sure, this is fantastic. Let me share with 3 or 4 people. And that's how we've been able to grow the company throughout the years. Now, through paid channels, you're gonna find we've experimented a lot, but it's a very competitive market. So depending on the job to be done, if it's voiceovers, if it's video, if it's design services, they have different paid acquisition channels that go through the universal. You have performance marketing, so pay-per-clicks that you put around. You have some PR efforts that we run throughout the years, and yeah, a couple of other things. But other than the usual, search engine optimization, like nurturing search engine optimization throughout the years, and word of mouth have been our 2 main growth channels.
Well, that's good to hear. Congratulations, because I think it's the ultimate validator, right? If you can build word of mouth business, then you're doing good. There's such an emphasis, and there has been such an emphasis on the customer experience. And you guys, I mean, that is your business. It was like looking at the customer experience and being like, hey, this is broken. This can be way better. So kudos to you guys. You guys have done something interesting in the past, I guess, gosh, time's flying here, right? But we're late July here. The beginning of July, you guys shifted to 4-day work weeks. I would like to talk about that because I think that's an interesting thing. We're both mostly remote organizations, so we've already crossed that hurdle. But what has it been like for you guys to shift to a 4-day work week?
This is week number 3. So it's
Okay.
been 21 days. Actually, today is my day off. I had a couple of meetings today just
Well,
scheduled,
thank you for
including
coming
this
on.
one. No, it's fantastic. I enjoy this time. But this is week number 3, and it's been very interesting. So 2 things that comes around 4-day work weeks. The first one is where we're coming from.
Mm.
So as the economic effects of the pandemic started, whomever adventures to say they knew where the world was heading, I think they're not saying the truth.
Correct.
And I was one of those people saying, I have no idea where this is heading. And I
Yeah.
could have 2 things. Either, yeah, there's reason to believe that everything that is remote or gig will grow. There's also reason to believe that it will not. And there's reason to believe that people are not going to be spending money and they're not going to come to my website or
Right.
to my business. So the first 8 weeks were extremely intense. We went back to like, hey, let's go back. Imagine we're starting a company. What are all the metrics we're going to be looking at in
Hmm.
a more strict way that we've been doing? What are the projects we're going to be looking at in a more strict way? Where did we unconsciously put bureaucracy to take decisions
Hmm.
and remove that bureaucracy and allow anyone to take decisions? And,
Right.
and how do we increase our runway in the short term, assuming that we're going to hit revenue zero, which happened to a lot of businesses
Hmm.
very early on. I'm talking
Yeah.
about March 20th, March 15th. Like,
Right.
if we hit revenue zero, what are we going to be doing? And we operated like that for the first 8 weeks, almost April and May. And it was extremely intense. We worked
Right.
really long days, including weekends. Like weekends was a day where we were looking at all the metrics. So we work Monday early and executed until Friday afternoon. And then Saturday we started at 9 a.m. and started looking at every single metric.
Yeah.
What is broken? What is broken? What is broken? Look at this. How do we fix it? Start Monday, fix it. So it was
Right.
very intense. And by June, we were actually exhausted.
Mm.
It was an incredible effect of having literally no stamina around. And two things happened. One, June has been the fastest growing month for us on a year over
Congrats.
year basis. Like we grow
Yeah.
really fast. So whatever we did in the previous months and the previous years paid off in June,
Yep.
which was really good. But then as we were planning Q3, it was like, oh God, we have to do Q3, and it's gonna be like we just spent a lot of energy. And then our head of people ops, Micah Hockman, fantastic professional, she brought the idea of a 4-day work week, and she brought examples already in the market. She brought Buffer. As we recently started the conversation, Shopify announced it would also go to 4-day work weeks.
Mm.
So she brought some examples through the market, and what we ended up doing, wrap it up here, was let's set our goals for Q3, including our objectives and including our performance indicator when we're looking at our performance indicators. And let's plan it as we were doing a regular quarter. And as we establish our OKRs and establish the goals that we were setting for our KPIs, we said, okay, how do we do this by cutting one day?
Hmm.
And the two effects that we set as a hypothesis, one is, well, people are going to be incentivized to be more productive.
Yeah.
Like you know I forgot the name of it, but I forgot the name of the effect of the paradox. But it's as long as you put a task for 3 hours, you're going to spend 3 hours. If you have put
Uh,
it at like an hour, you would have spent an hour. And
yeah.
if you would have said the task is going to take you 6 hours, you would have spent 6 hours.
Okay.
So taking that into consideration, we said people are going to find ways to be optimal in how they execute throughout the weeks.
Right.
So they can take it Monday, Thursday. They're going to take family time, business time, whatever they need on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the second hypothesis that we said is our objectives on our KPIs are not going to be affected.
Okay.
Now, 21 days forward, we know a couple of things. One, it was an incredible motivator boost for the team.
Okay.
Like it was incredible the positive reaction that people had, and this has been hard days for everyone. Like we're doing a lot of things at home that somehow we were not doing before, or actually we're spending so much time in home that we were not spending 4 months ago. So that opening that cognitive time for 3 days, people loved it. It was a very
Okay.
positive reaction.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it does take time to adjust. And
Mm.
I talking for a personal experience. Week one, I failed achieving what I wanted to achieve. Week two, I spent a couple of hours adjusting and see how I'm going to do it. And I achieved almost 95% of what I wanted to do.
Okay.
This third week, I improved and I already realized a couple of areas of improvement that I'm going to put next week. And the only thing that it has made me and has made part of the team to really focus on is how do you really take advantage of your time
Right.
and try to make it work Monday, Thursday, so you can take Friday, Saturday, Sunday for family. Um, Yesterday, I was talking with, and the attitude, like one of my quote unquote worries throughout these days is like, are people really gonna try to think the way I'm thinking, which is optimization and efficiency?
Yeah. Right.
Or are people just gonna say, oh, thank you for the day off and that's it? And it was very nice. I had a very nice conversation with one of the engineers yesterday at a team. His name is Felipe. And I talked to Felipe, and Felipe told me, hey, I asked him, how do you think about a 4-day work week experiment? And he said, hey, on the one hand, I love it. It's been hard, so on and so on. But he said a phrase which is, well, I love this to be implemented in the long term, but I know it's up to me and it's up to us as a team
To do it.
to actually show the results.
Yeah.
So you guys take the decision of making it permanent. And that's the right attitude that I was looking for. Like
Yes.
that's the management idea. I'm looking like,
Ownership.
yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Ownership.
Yeah.
Like if you can deliver Monday, Thursday, why do I need you here on Friday?
Right.
And why do I need you on Saturday? And why do I need 6-day work weeks when they're very, very, very exhausting and specifically cognitive load?
Right.
So, yeah, it's been good. It's been fun.
Well, yeah, and I know it's an ongoing experiment because I know you guys committed to go through
Yep.
the end of August, but
Yep.
I had to ask. I am curious from an actual implementation of it, just for simple math. If the normal work week was 50 hours, it's 10 hours a day. Is the goal for you guys to condense 50 hours of whatever was production before into 40 hours, or has it changed that like, hey, we're still doing 50 hours. We're just doing 50 hours over 4 days.
It's actually the first approach.
Okay.
So it's how do you condense 50 hours, 60 hours into 40 hours
Yeah.
or into 4 days rather than to working longer days throughout the days.
Right.
So it's actually thinking make shortcuts. And my personal experience, which is different from the rest of the team, my time is spent on meetings and calls and a stab back and forth. The team is executing, but you start saving instead of having. I remember this is a phrase from Churchill, and I think I saw this on the Queen, the Netflix show, and there's a very interesting scene where the Queen has recently been in position, and Churchill's arrived to have a conversation with her, and she actually tells him, "Oh, Churchill, feel free to sit down." And Churchill says, "Well, thank you for reminding me to sit down. With your father, this is the Second World War. With your father, during the Second World War, we knew that there was no single decision that needed to be taken in more than 20 minutes." And it really pushes you to think, well, if Churchill was able to manage Second World War in 20-minute decisions, why can I not take my meetings from 60 minutes, not only to half an hour, but from half an hour to actually 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And how do you really focus on what you need to do? That's on the meeting side. How do you make sure that you're taking decision on the optimal time? How do you make decision that, how do you build an organization that is sharing reading content rather than asking people to jump on Zooms? How do you make sure that so on and so on and so on? And you try to remove things and allow people either to focus or take decisions faster. So that's better execution, better focus for taking decisions. And that's the goal.
All right. Well, kudos to you guys. I think it's an ambitious effort, and it sounds like you guys are trending in the right way. I love the exercise, specifically the first one, which is the goal of, hey, how do we basically optimize our time better, and how do we look for those shortcuts? So I do fear that I fall far away from Churchill, and often, require, maybe 2 hours or more to make a decision. And it's something that I've been mindful of and it reminds me of, I think it was Zuckerberg that said, move fast and break things, basically make a decision, move forward. You may break it, but learn from it, right? So don't just be haphazard, but learn from it. But you're moving forward, because if you wait until it's right, so many times, if you wait for the market condition to be right, if you wait for the cut, like it'll never be perfect. Jump in, move forward. Is there anything else that you think is important that you're seeing internally or in the marketplace that you think is important to share right now?
What can I tell you? I think the biggest trend that I was looking at a couple of days ago, and it's really been bogging my head regarding how to think my business and how businesses, even if I'm going to be doing some angel investment, where do they put the money, goes to digital entertainment. I think that's going to be not only following the trend that entertainment is where people spend the most time on the web, but thinking about how the world is going to be in the next 10 years. When we're talking about for the next 3-4 years, we might not have Coachella as we used to know it.
Right.
Or we might not have, going to the disco on Friday at 8 p.m. And people are still looking to connect on Friday, 8 p.m. with friends.
Right.
They're still looking to be listening to their favorite artists or going to a museum or watching a movie. And there's an incredible opportunity on how do you find those. Imagine the world 10 years from now, if we don't go back to normal. I'm not hoping that's the case. I hope we go back to a version of normal again. But if it doesn't, how's the world going to look like?
Right.
And if you think about it, wow, there's an incredible amount of opportunities to follow the rabbit hole and actually build something great.
Well, so I had a guest on earlier, and he bought a baseball team. It's not even a minor league baseball team, and he's a very creative individual. His name is Jesse Cole, and he during this period, baseball sports groups, they've had to completely rethink their business because it is an in-person sport, right? This isn't like the NFL or MLB where they have huge production budgets and they've had to get innovative. But he said it's been an incredible experience because people, what he learned, and this is before the pandemic hit, he's in not the baseball business, he's in the entertainment business. And so he learned that, hey, yes, baseball is a vehicle, but beyond that, we have to make it entertaining in ways that we haven't thought before. And
Yep.
because he was like that before, he has been able to adapt rapidly, whereas people that haven't thought like that, they're struggling. So I'd love to hear you say that, because I think the entertaining aspect, even if it's a business or if it's, traditional media entertainment, like people want to be entertained more and more, and putting that focus forward, getting creative, thinking differently, you will struggle if you don't.
Um, and yeah, you're right.
All right. Well, Santiago, I want to thank you for coming on. It's been a really interesting and engaging conversation. I look forward to circling back with you. I'd love to hear the final results of the 4-day work week. I might have to talk to some colleagues here in my firm. But no, this has been great. I really genuinely appreciate you coming on.
Joshua, thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, let's see how things go. And let's recap in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that sounds great.
Joshua.